Hey, welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast Postgame Show, brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Be sure to leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Johnny Venerable. He's Bo Brock. We will be joined by DA Damien Anderson in a matter of moments as the Cardinals attempting to put this game on ice as Tennessee is inside the red zone. We thought we'd cheat a little bit, go live, take your comments and questions here as the Arizona Cardinals are putting a bow, thank goodness, on this offseason, on this preseason, and we can look ahead to next week and the cut down to 53.
We wanted to kind of make it like New Year's Eve style. We wanted to be here and just wish a fond farewell to the preseason and welcome.
Bon voyage. Goodbye.
That's right. Farewell season where none of the actual Arizona Cardinals play football. But there was some big performances tonight, Johnny. We couldn't wait to talk about them. We're going to get into them a little bit. After the final whistle blows, we'll get DA in here. But, it's really felt like anybody who had any shadow of a doubt really showed up tonight. Like, there were some big performances from some guys that, I don't know if their roster spots were, up for grabs or, in jeopardy going into this game, but there was some big performances that secured some guys some spots, at least going into week one.
Folks in the chat saying touchdown Titans. Yeah. That is unfortunate as the Titans get a final minute and a half touchdown to beat the Cardinals, presumably in this preseason game. I mean, frankly, it means nothing, but here's what does mean something. This is the coronation. I put it out on Twitter of Andy Isabella, and a very nice preseason for the young man. I think, Bo Brock, I'm not speaking out of turn here. If you had to give a preseason MVP, it would be a coin flip between Andy Isabella and Greg Dortch. And here's what I'll say. I think Greg Dortch has had a better camp day in and day out. When you've been at practice, when I've seen him at practice, Andy Isabella during preseason games has been the team's MVP. He's been the leading receiver, the most explosive player on their roster. And tonight goes out, catches 5 balls, 115 yards, 23 yards per catch, including a 74-yard catch and run. I think this is the point where, I'm not going to eat any crow because we talked about it yesterday on the pod. Like, he's going to make the team we expect him to. It's what is he going to do when the lights come on during the regular season? Mm-hmm. But kudos to Andy. Made a play tonight, had the a drop pass, jumped off sides, but certainly looks the part of, okay, you're rounding out the back end of your receiving corps. He's fine.
Yeah, he is fine, and he earned his spot. And now it's just like, can he, when called upon, can he step up? Can he get, can he, when the ammo's live, is he going to play and show up unlike he's done, the previous 3 seasons? A catch last season, inactive at the previous season to that, and then we know his rookie season, there was one big play for 80+ yards, to the house in a game that was kind of out of hand against the 49ers. So you like what you've seen. Like, he had no other, way to go. He had to go up to earn a spot, and he did. And I think he earned a spot earlier in camp and then just kind of put an exclamation point on that today with his 100+ yards, drew another PI flag that was offset by another penalty, but that was a 3rd game in a row, continues to kind of draw physical coverage downfield. And that's what you want from him. Like, he's not going to be a guy that's going to play inside. He's not going to be a versatile wide receiver that they envision, like that can run all the entire route tree. He's an outside guy, and he's going to be a guy that can kind of take the top off the defense. When will his name? Will it ever get called upon in this season with a loaded wide receiver room? I don't know. I think that you can still do way more with Greg Dortch at this point. But a tip of the cap to those guys. I think, those are the 2 guys that earn their spot in an absolutely loaded room for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, and I'm not discrediting like the potential for a trade next week. I think Andy has trade value, whether it's a fringe cornerback that the Cardinals are maybe looking at, a fringe defensive back, somebody that can play defensive tackle. I think Andy has value, but it's just how much is his value to Arizona, as Bo just said. Is he going to play meaningful snaps? You wouldn't think so, outside of even more run of injuries to this wide receiving core. I do think it's a benefit, Bo. In years prior, this team has kind of muddled his psyche because he's been asked to return punts and then go out and play receiver. Let him focus on trying to catch the football. You've got Greg Dortch, obviously, to return punts. So if, push comes to shove, we don't really know what's happening with Rondale Moore's injury. Antoine Wesley's, got the groin. AJ Green's 35. I mean, things could fall into place for him to play snaps here or there. My biggest question is this a shelf life move after Hopkins comes back? Week 7, you're not carrying 7 receivers. And if Greg Dortch is ingrained as your return man, that means Andy would be the odd man out. So are we just prolonging the inevitable? And does that allow Steve Keim to put the foot on the gas next week and say, okay, sure, he may be able to help us the first 6 weeks, but how much of a drop-off is there between him and Victor Bolden, who made a nice catch? And then we could just cut bait with Victor, whereas maybe we can get something for Andy now. I'm thinking way ahead into the future, but it's worth repeating. Like, the Cardinals are going to carry 7 wideouts at some point, so somebody would have to go in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, look, just make that tough decision down the road when you have to make it. At this point, you were looking for guys that you view as depth to step up and earn a spot, and I think that the 2 guys that you wanted to do it did it. And I think Greg Dortch was maybe a surprise name, but he started to kind of emerge during the OTA portion of this offseason. So, and you saw him play a pretty solid game for this team in Dallas, and they knew that here's a guy given an opportunity. If he can stay healthy, he can make plays for us on teams and just kind of this versatile role on offense. So, your top 4 are your top 4. I mean, it's just, you're just biding time by the time DeAndre Hopkins gets there. But, is there enough footballs to go around to make, Andy Isabella, if you want to keep Andy Isabella at this point beyond the 53, what's his role going to be where he's going to impact every Sunday? I don't know where. I still don't know where that is.
Is he going to be inactive? Right? Is he even going to be active on game days?
And this should be a celebratory moment for Isabella. I think that he does look comfortable. He had a spectacular preseason and great training camp. He did, but if you get an offer and you could maybe add depth to your defensive secondary, if you could add to your draft capital, if you could add anywhere, I think that you have to seriously look at that. I think what this preseason really did, though, is continue the polarization of Andy Isabella to where now people want to hold on to him for some reason. It's like there's just no damn role for him. I mean, it's just because you've got D-Hop, you've got Marquise Brown, you've got AJ Green, you've got Rondale Moore. You just have, and I think Greg Dortch in front of him. It's just like, well, where's the role going to be? Why not try to get some value?
If Andy Isabella gets traded for a 6th or 7th round pick next week, something that you and I both put on the record, I would take at this point. People, I would say 90% of the fans, and you guys can let your voices heard in the comments, I hope that you do, would be pissed off by that. But you have to look at the fact that he did not play at all last year. And now you've got the broadcasters, Wolfley and company, saying nobody's improved more year over year to Andy Isabella on the roster. I hope that's not the case, because if it is, the Cardinals are fucked. If other players on the roster haven't improved as much as Andy Isabella, pardon my French, but I would hope Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins have improved at their craft more than Andy, who can't beat out Greg Dortch, a former undrafted free agent. That to me is just, I hope that they're just kind of buttering up this whole scenario where you can serve Andy on a silver platter to another team that needs wideout depth. Cardinals are too loaded at receiver. And I also noted during the game, they flanked out Trey McBride at the X. Now, Trace McSorley, who was all over the place tonight outside of that first possession, didn't even target him one time. But it kind of gave you a glimpse of Trace McSorley can play outside. He's not always going to be on the line of scrimmage getting dirty with the hog mollies, right? So you add that into play with the fact that the running backs can catch. Ertz is a borderline Pro Bowler at this stage of his career. There's not enough balls to come around. Even Kyler Murray said it in the broadcast. This is the most talented receiving core I've ever been around. And so I think Andy made a mark for him, like Bo mentioned, absolutely dead on for his career. But I don't know if it's destined to be with Arizona. I think it's a waste to keep him buried, inactives, 6th, 7th man on the depth chart. Because he's not, if you had a role for him and it was clearly defined, it's Andy's going to be our 4th receiver. He's going to come in when we go 10 personnel, whatever. That's one thing. But one catch last year makes me think, okay, are we showcasing Andy? Is this the showcase of Andy Isabella? And is he in his final days as an Arizona Cardinal? Because I think when the cut down happens on Tuesday, Bo, he will be on the roster. It'll be a celebratory moment for a lot of his supporters, rightfully so. And then I could easily see him be moved Wednesday or Thursday.
I agree with you. If the right deal comes, and it's become more of an active NFL, at this time of year, and guys realizing, hey, we're going to try to get any kind of value, and I think this is your peak value right now for Andy Isabella right now, because once the the regular season begins and his role diminishes, you can't put him there. There's no way to put him back on full display. There's no 200 plus yards in 3 games of work and 3 PI penalties that were drawn. It's going to be too tough. This is where you really want to you showcase them. You did a great job at doing that. Now let's you either keep them for the depth, but I think when you look at this roster, especially in that defensive secondary, if you can match up with somebody, make it happen. Make it happen. And I think a lot of people said, well, look, we'll see what happens. It's like, okay, well, this is happening for a different reason now. The ship has sailed as far as him becoming a member of this wide receiver core. It's just there's too much talent in that room, and it was going to be an uphill battle anyway. And he did a great job in displaying his abilities for 31 other teams.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen him score that tutty. I also love to see Damien Anderson joining us, the pride of Northwestern. DA, we cheated. We went a little bit before before the end of the game, and probably jinxed the Cardinals as they didn't get walked off, but they lost the final preseason game of the offseason. It's all right. No big deal. Celebrating Andy Isabella, and then about to celebrate your guy, Keaontay Ingram, who played the large majority of this game, had a little over 60 yards, just under, 4 yards per carry. But I thought it was the extra stuff, that Keaontay did. Pass protection looked great. Physical. They asked him to do a lot in short yardage. What do you make out of the Cardinal rookie attempting to make this final 53?
Yeah, Johnny, his ability to play special teams, that's one thing that I paid attention to closely at the beginning of the game. And he was starting on all, kickoff, punt
Mm-hmm.
and his ability to identify and recognize the blitz in those certain situations and get chips on defensive end so they can't apply pressure to his quarterback. But I think all throughout the preseason, Keaontay's done a great job of obviously showing that he could rush the football, making guys miss, getting the extra yardage, and catch the ball. And you want to be complete in all those 3 phases or all 4 phases, but he also has that explosiveness to be a playmaker. So I think the coaches like where they're at, and scouts like where they at in terms of Keaontay. But the running backs had a night. With his big catch. Williams, we haven't seen much of him. To me, it demonstrated that he could be that complementary James Conner. If Conner goes down, he could go right in there and assume the position and get those tough yardage, catch the ball out of the backfield. And you could just see how much the coaching staff are comfortable throwing the ball to out of the backfield. So I think that everyone can guesstimate what his role will be during the season.
That first drive was great for this running back group. As you mentioned, had the 25 yards receiving, had 9 yards on the ground. Darrell Williams got a couple carries, including the touchdown. And it was just, you saw third and manageable that entire drive. And it turns a guy like Trace McSorley into a lot better quarterback when he's got those situations going. And he was perfect on that drive, 7 for 7. So I thought it was an important game. But then you're absolutely right. We even heard Wolf on the broadcast mentioned that they've been talking about his ability to play special teams, something he's never had to do in his career. And it's encouraging. And with that being said, that kind of takes an edge away from Jonathan Ward, who unfortunately had such a strong preseason in camp and is known for his ability to play teams. But, one running back sets and you're going to keep 5 running backs. I just think that it makes Jonathan Ward, unfortunately, very expendable.
Yeah, the broadcast, again, I don't mean to harp on the broadcast. I love Dave Pasch and Ron Wolfley, but the Cardinals are not keeping 5 backs. That would be lunacy in today's NFL for a team that loves to throw the football. You want to tell me, they're going to keep 6 receivers, maybe 7 at some point? I think that's a lot, but I would believe that much more. I think there's a much better chance they keep 3 backs as compared to 5. But I think we saw the foursome tonight, guys. Like Jonathan Ward, unfortunately for him, he's injured. The Cardinals need production now. And I think Keaontay Ingram answered a lot of questions for you. They're going to be able to put on that film from tonight, and they're going to be able to see a young man in a short amount of time be able to grasp the rigors of an NFL special team, regimen. And then also, again, I don't mean to keep harping on this, but his pass protection stands out to me. When it's bad, you see that, and it's evident. It's like, oh, man, get number 30 out of there. But that never happened with Keaontay. So the running ability is too much of a plus to be able to move off of him. And I see way more, with all due respect to Eno, from Keaontay as a rookie than I ever saw from Eno Benjamin 2 years ago as a 7th rounder at Arizona State. He just brings a different dynamic. So I'm excited for Keaontay. I think, if it was up to me, he'd make the team. We'll see. I don't think he'd survive cuts to a practice squad. I think he'd be snatched up. But another guy that I think we're all kind of on bated breath for, Chandler Wooten, inside linebacker, undrafted out of the SEC Auburn. Didn't get in probably until, I would say, like midway through the second quarter, late, right before halftime. Ended up finishing with just at 10 tackles. Didn't have a tackle for loss, but it looked like 2 or 3 occasions he could have been credited for one. DA, do you feel like this inside linebacking core is too deep for him to make the roster? Or do you feel like his position potentially is set as a young player that the Cardinals could groom?
Well, in terms of inside linebacker, I mean, what's there, right? I mean, we have Collins, right? And I'm not sure if you guys talked about his play, but I think that we saw some spark tonight talking about obviously his TFL and the way that he was able to identify the screen, push it into his help. But in terms of depth, Johnny, I mean, I love his instincts. You know that he's going to play hard, and we talked about special teams with Keaontay. You know that he's going to be a guy that's going to do whatever it takes for the football club. It's going to be hard to, as a special teams coach and as a linebacker coach, you hate releasing a guy like that, but you understand he didn't maybe have the best, third game. And I think that almost helps him because with the practice squad being expanded, he's a guy that you would like to have around and just be ready to come in and, at any moment and cover a kick or protect on a punt or even get some reps, because I think everybody could agree you love the instincts that you saw from Chandler Wooten.
Absolutely. It's going to be tough just because of what value Tanner Vallejo and Zeke Turner bring to teams. And, you're playing the numbers game.
Vallejo looked explosive tonight. He looked. I mean, at first I thought he was going to outplay Zaven. You know what I mean? Initially, when we had that early TFL, you're like, okay. And then I think, again, we talk about the broadcast. You heard Wolf say, that's what Zaven's supposed to be doing. Vallejo's seen it multiple times, and that's that play recognition, and that's why he was out there. He and a guy like Marco Wilson were out in the football field, third preseason game. You see things that happen to Zach Wilson, in the preseason. Do you want to chance that with one of your starters? But obviously the value they saw were on this experience and getting that confidence going into the season on September 11th.
Chris in the chat. Go ahead.
I just think, unfortunately, you don't even look at the inside line. I think, Wooten's probably hurdled a guy like Joe Walker as far as maybe fighting for a roster spot. I would give him the edge there. But you have to look at the outside linebacker group, just because of the point I was making on Friday, Johnny, that you're gonna play Zaven maybe in some pass rush roles or Isaiah Simmons in a pass rush role. So those are guys that you can maybe get rid of one of these outside backers for. And I think Devon Kennard, unfortunatally, might be the guy who's on the chopping block.
You keep going back to that.
I don't think that's going to happen, guys. I think that they saw enough last week, and I just think that they need depth there, right? Like him and Gardak had a good game last week. They weren't dressed. They didn't play this week. I think that shows, volume, right? Like if he was going to be out there, maybe respect him and not playing him in game 3. But I think that depth that's needed on that outside linebacker position, having a guy like Kennard, he's almost like a safety measure. And if he gives you that production of expectation when you got him and signed him for that big deal, like that's just a plus, right? He's doing his job, and you need him there in terms of that veteran leadership, because who else, do they have? You got Junkyard Dog, but besides that, it's still, you saw like the promise of your outside linebackers. Even, Cam Thomas played well tonight with 2 sacks. I'm not sure how many he finished with, but just seeing his motor, first one obviously was a coverage sack. But those are things that you love to see, but you can't go on unknown, and that's why I think that they're going to keep a guy like DK.
So we're looking at, Golden, we're looking at Gardeck, Myjai Sanders, Cameron Thomas, who are, locks, and I think Victor Dumakaji has earned his spot as well. That's 5 guys, and then Kennard is 6, and then you look at the inside linebacking core with Zaven, Vigil, Vallejo, and then probably Zeke Turner. That's tough. I mean, that's 10 guys that you're keeping at the linebacker spot. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens between now and Tuesday as far as some of these guys who really made a name for themselves and played really well this preseason in training camp.
Well, it was nice to see Cam Thomas. I don't want to call him underwhelming up until this point, but he had been outplayed in practice and in the first 2 preseason games by fellow draftee Myjai Sanders, and he comes out tonight, play with his hair on fire. Maybe he's getting a little bit more comfortable. He had 4 quarterback hits tonight, gentlemen, 2 sacks, one of which was unblocked, but still. And then you couple that with Myjai Sanders, who himself had a half a sack and 2 quarterback hits. That is the future beaming bright for the Cardinals long-term and outside linebacker. I think they have shown each player has shown enough that, okay, they're going to at least be at the very least solid service.
They're on the team,
players.
Johnny.
Well, yeah, but I just mean projecting like
team, bro.
If we fast forward to December, like I could envision scenarios in which both those guys are getting some snaps, maybe against Tom Brady, maybe against Russell Wilson, trying to keep that core fresh, and maybe the light turns on for them mid-season. That's what the Cardinals have not had enough of from the rookie classes in years prior, save for Kyler Murray. It's like we get these rookies and we get excited about them, and we don't see them for 18 months. But I think with this group in particular, Trey McBride isn't hauling in a bunch of passes, and I think it has something more to do with the quarterback play. He's playing a ton, and he does not look overwhelmed, and he's doing a phenomenal job both getting open, and his run blocking looks fantastic. Had sprung the block for Darrell Williams, scores touchdown. And then the 2 third-rounders look very serviceable tonight. They played almost the entire game. That group right there. And yeah, you can add in Hollywood Brown, but I'm going to go with those 3 in particular. Like, we need to be in a position where after Thanksgiving, those guys are trending up and we really know what we have, because for so long it has been, we'll kind of see how the rookies look, mid-season, but if not, we're good. We'll just play the veterans all year, even veterans that may not have a future on this team, that are free agents, that are not improving. I want to see these young players, specifically on the defensive end, to get better as the season goes on and to be trending up, because I'm with Bo, DA. If Devon Kennard doesn't look good, looks like ass for 6 to 8 weeks, I don't want to hear an excuse of, well, he's a veteran, he's been around the block. We can't risk putting Cam Thomas out there. But that's the one area in which Vance Joseph has not been keen on doing. And we got on Vance during I think a show earlier this week. But I mean, like, how many times did we watch subpar inside linebacking play to not just throw Zaven Collins out there? But I'm more optimistic with this pass rushing group than I am with what I saw from Zaven as a first-year rookie, because it's easier, frankly.
And I gotta ask you guys, I gotta push back a little bit, because I think for me, just with the whole Trey McBride being pretty much the second round pick and the Cardinals' first pick of this year's draft, to me that's been a bit underwhelming. I know that he's dealt with some what was it, back issues. I'm not sure what the background is, but just in terms of his ability, like, I didn't think that they signed him in the block.
We missed a lot of practice time too, and they mentioned that tonight.
I understand that, Johnny, but I just think that there would be more of an emphasis, like when Ertz is in the game, where they try and find ways. It just seems to get him the ball, and with Trey in the game, it's more so he's just in there to block, and they'll maybe take a shot once every 20 opportunities, but otherwise they're going to stick to their game plan. To me, that I would have liked to see him a little bit more. I wouldn't say I'm concerned. I think it's a great position that they're in with the depth that they have, obviously at tight end and at defensive line. You just want to see those guys make plays, right? But McBride, I don't know if.
Well, can we be honest about this offense in the preseason with the guy who was running the offense? And Bo can give some credit, some life to this, because he's watched practice every day. It's been McSorley and Dortch and Isabella, because they practice, I feel like, the most with each other, and that's been the offense. And so that is what I take away more from. It's just those 3 guys, unless they're making plays, the Cardinals weren't moving the ball in the preseason, and I don't think it's because the other guys weren't putting forth quality production. I just think you got a third stringer out there, and Bo McBride's production is so susceptible on who's playing quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't see McSorley throw the ball to the tight end really at all. You just haven't seen it in training camp. You haven't seen it much. I think Seikovits had 3 catches tonight, but that's probably the extent of the production from the tight end position this preseason. Now, I know you haven't had Ertz, and Max Williams is coming back from a knee. But yeah, I mean, he forced the ball twice. Maybe he felt snake bitten. He forced the ball twice to McBride last week, and he just didn't. He wasn't even throwing his way. So I don't know. I think with McBride, unfortunately, it's probably something that's going to delay his impact week 1, and maybe beyond that. But at least you have Zach Ertz to kind of hang your hat on for right now. But yeah, I'm not too concerned. I was encouraged by the blocking, and I don't want to drink the Kool-Aid too much, Damien, on that. Like, you should be concerned when your guy's not even getting targeted. But I think that the McSorley factor is pretty big here, as far as him not wanting to throw and throw over the middle. Or
but guys, I mean, he's a second-round draft pick.
Well, Bo, you've seen him every day at practice. Is he the real deal catching
the football? I mean, like, let's be real. Like, will we be having this conversation, Johnny, if we talked about Andy Isabella blocking downfield? Will we be having the same conversation? Like, hey, man, he sprung some runs, and did you see him blocking, guys? McSorley's in there, and hey, he doesn't throw to Andy. He only hands it off. Like, he's a second-round pick, my dude. You know what I mean?
Let me see him with Kyler Murray, and if it's not working with Kyler,
I've seen him with Kyler, and it's pretty. It looks good. Okay. I've seen him with Kyler, and he made 2 very impressive catches. One over Zaven Collins, where he high pointed it, and then another over the middle. He's athletic. He looks like he's a pretty good route runner. I think he did probably face some pretty tough coverage assignments too. Especially up against Baltimore. He had a couple different defenders on him at any given time. So he's not going to get that treatment once the regular season kicks off. So let's see. Let's just wait a couple beats on McBride. But I won't say that I'm comfortable with no catches in the preseason, having played in 2 games.
Wait on McBride. Don't wait on DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Today is the opening day for college football, and you can bet on it today, right now, using that promo code PHNX on DraftKings. Bet $5 on any college football game, and you can get $200 back in free bets instantly for new customers. That's promo code PHNX. It's only at DraftKings. Gentlemen, I already made some money today facing the Nebraska Cornhuskers, who looked terrible after being up 28-17 and then kicking an onside. I had Northwestern money line. I had the over. Both hit on DraftKings for me. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See those show notes for details, Bo.
You probably would have. I think a lot of people would have lost some money if they bet that Scott Frost was going to have less wins than Cliff Kingsbury this far into their respective careers. But Scott Frost, my God. That guy, it's just not worked out there for the Husker Nation.
No.
Lot of drinks flying in Ireland today from them. And you know what? We can't drink in Ireland, but we can drink at Four Peaks, and especially this Wednesday, we're all going to be hanging out together. It's the last Wednesday of the month. We're going to be hanging out PHNX live from Four Peaks Brewing Company all day long, August 31st. Join us at 1304 East 8th Street in Tempe, the OG location. You got all the shows there, all live. Between now and then, do us a favor. Go try to win yourself some free stuff. We're going to be announcing the Toast of the Month sweepstakes winner. It's a $50 Four Peaks gift card, a PHNX shirt of your choice, a PHNX annual membership. Just go to gophnx.com or click the link in the show notes. If you're going to be drinking, you got to be 21 years or older. Enjoy responsibly. Real quick, I think, because we didn't talk about it before you got on DA, but the Zaven Collins thing, I feel like that's back-to-back games where we've seen him flash. He really did look his best that I've seen him tonight. He made some great plays.
Yeah, there were 2 plays we talk about, Bo, signature plays. Obviously, the run stuff with the line we ran through the fullback and had a TFL, and then just identifying the screen and had 3 Titan defenders out there in open space. And he just maneuvered through them and forced the ball carrier back to the inside to his help. Just seeing that type of play recognition, that reckless abandon to go out there and make the play, that's what you want from your leader. That's what you want. I mean, he missed his fitting on a couple of plays, but I think the energy was there, the power and the confidence, right? And he got out of the game healthy. I think that's everything that the coaches wanted to see, and that's why we saw him for a very, limited time. To me, what was maybe not as encouraging is having a guy like Marco Wilson out there, right? With the depth that we talk about with that secondary, Johnny, and having him out there and still having to prove it.
Well, here's the kind of the good and bad with that. We all feel like Antonio Hamilton, who is the CB2, has some kind of injury or ailment. He's MIA right now. So even if Marco Wilson doesn't like playing with the backups in preseason game number 3, guess what? Sounds like he's going to be playing a lot, for better or worse, September 11th against Kansas City, which has been my point on Marco Wilson since day one. Is like, everybody can be upset about how his offseason is gone or training camp or whatever, and we can pout, but like, he has a chance to rewrite his narrative. Week 1, he intercepts Patrick Mahomes. Everything changes, right? He has a couple passes defended. He has a good game. Good to go. Play the next 17 weeks. That's the beauty of, having 4 cornerbacks, that need to be available and ready to play. But I do feel like, gentlemen, there were comments made by Michael Bidwell, for those of you who didn't hear during the broadcast, about Steve Keim, how he's quote unquote had a great offseason because of the trades for recently Cody Ford and especially Hollywood Brown, but how he, quote, is not done and expects him, Michael Bidwell does, to be aggressive ahead and during cuts next week. I think that's the opportunity the Cardinal fans have been waiting for. We've seen it in the chats and the comments, like, when is the cornerback depth coming? And I would be shocked if we got through the wave of cuts down to 53s. If you're the last 2 or 3 on the roster that make it, don't start, looking for houses just yet, because I think that the Cardinals are going to be making moves. Keim and company, they've got ample cap money to spend. They are ready to go after some players.
And they got Andy Isabella.
Yeah, dangle little Andy, right? Dangle Andy in front of some teams with some cornerback depth, and you know what? I
think he's going to the Patriots, guys. I got a feeling.
Okay, he's going. Give us something. I don't care if he goes to Timbuktu if they've got a cornerback that can play. I don't care where he goes. Literally does not. For those of you just jumping on, like, Andy is not going to have a role in these first 6 weeks until Hopkins comes back. So if he's on the roster, awesome. But there's nothing for him to do. You know what there is? There's opportunities, Bo, in the secondary for somebody to come in and really help out this group. We don't know who that is yet, but they're there. It's available.
Right. I mean, it's not the back end of the secondary. It's not the safeties. The safety spot is also a secure spot, and I think maybe one roster spot was up for grabs, and you saw 2 guys that played very well tonight. It's going to be tough to decide between, and I think there's more of a history with James Wiggins than there is with a Tay Daly, who made a big play in the joint practice, a big pick in the 2-minute drill, and had 9 tackles tonight. But Wiggins had the pick, and that just bone rattling hit on the sidelines. He's a draft pick from Steve Keim. I don't know if he gets the edge there, but could he round out the safety room of Thompson and Buddha and Isaiah Simmons? You got 4 guys, but then you're still looking for who's going to cover. And, Marco Wilson, I guess I'm grading on a curve. He allows 2 receptions early, but he's right there, and they're not big plays. I don't know. I mean, do we just have Stockholm syndrome in the thinking that Marco Wilson is going to be, we'll just take what he can give us?
How can you?
Well, damn it, Bo, he's all we got.
How can he? Exactly.
He's all we got right now. So
he was having a great camp as a rookie.
Wilson.
How can he regress this badly? Damien, have you ever seen somebody supposedly regress from year 1 to year 2 that has a promising year 1? Because is that what we're dealing with Marco Wilson?
I mean, I got to defer to Bo. I have to defer to Bo because, like Bo said, I watched the game and have been, trying to take notes and just on his play. And like you said, Bo, they're not huge plays, and he's right there and he's making the tackle. Like, what's been your biggest because you go to practice, you were at practice all the time. Like, what's your biggest takeaway and take on Marco Wilson in comparison to Antonio Hamilton? Is it just one making plays, or is like Johnny said, has he regressed?
One was available early on, and one was available after week 2, and that was Antonio Hamilton, as Marco was dealing with a groin issue, and then he got back on the field. But before that, it was like the Marco hype train was leaving the station. Like, he had the impressive OTAs. He had, we all remember the clip of DeAndre Hopkins throwing the ball at Isaiah Simmons. That's because Marco Wilson had a huge pass breakup on DeAndre Hopkins in practice. He was battling that entire day with him. And I would have said, he's got the grasp on cornerback 2 at that point. And then ever since, the groin injury right around the red-white scrimmage, he just hasn't, he's just trended in the wrong direction. But to Johnny's point, I think that there's still so much time for him to get back in the good graces of this organization. But are they going to be patient enough? I think as far as where he was at the end of last season and where he is right now, there's an organization that needs to address this position, because week one, you don't want to have that influx like it is right now. So unfortunately, I think they're running out of time, and they're not going to, just say, hey, 20, it's your job just by default. You haven't showed us anything for the last 2 weeks. I just don't think they can do that. I think it's naive. I think it's irresponsible.
They have no choice but to play him, whether they like it or not. You have a choice, though, if you want to buy some furniture. And I can tell you what, right now, Labor Day sale from Moore Furniture is where you want to be. We're so excited for you all to check out how our friends at Moore Furniture have hooked up the entire new studio, new furniture at PHNX, the whole 9 yards. If you're interested in checking out their phenomenal Labor Day sale, all you got to do, visit morefurniture.com. Better. I've said this on every show. I've got this shitty Costco chair, or maybe it's from Amazon. Hurts my back. I need a procedure. Bo knows what I'm talking about. Need that backiotomy. But if I had some more furniture, if I could steal a recliner or two from more furniture,
you'll be all right.
Yeah,
Right.
I need to dabble some more furniture, some OGeez. Maybe I'll feel better about our secondary too if I pop an OG, Bo.
Right. Yeah. You don't need to talk to Samson. You don't need to talk to Mr. Happy, Mr. Smiley. You just need to talk to OGeez Brands, our friends over there. Absolutely. Enter the Flavor Life sweepstakes while you're at it. Get some free stuff. How about 3 bags of OGeez delicious gummies, including orange creamsicle, their tropical flavors. You can get an OGeez hat, PHNX shirt of your choice, and a PHNX annual membership. Their stuff, all of it, you can find in your local dispensary. You got to be 21 years or older. Check them out online, OGeezBrands.com, and on Instagram at OGeezBrands. I saw Bees ask us about the front seven. That's an interesting, especially the interior of that defensive line. Really, the guy known for his Kyler Murray impression at the beginning of camp is making some noise on the field, and Manny Jones. A couple more TFLs for him tonight. Anybody, I mean, we look at the roster, Rashad Lawrence, Lecky Fotu, who's dealing with an injury. You've got Zach Allen, J.J. Watt coming back from COVID. You're looking at that defensive line. Any of these guys stand out to you, Ledbetter, that could crack this roster come Tuesday?
Could Lecky Fotu get cut? Let me ask you this, guys. Rashad Lawrence has outplayed Lecky Fotu this training camp. Lecky Fotu's been hurt. He played off and on last year. I'm just kind of looking for underneath storyline signals where we get a surprise cut. And I haven't heard from Lecky Fotu in many, many weeks, right? And then you've got these Ledbetter and Woods playing really well. The Cardinals could absolutely claim a defensive lineman this week. I think cornerback and defensive line appear like the two groupings that you could really get aggressive on if you're Steve Keim. But I don't think, again, at the end of the day, Watt, Rashad Lawrence, Zach Allen, you feel good about those three. That's your starting defensive line, presumably.
Michael Dogby.
Michael Dogby, who they brought back, who flashed last year, who has earned it. But I'm not married to anybody else in that group. And I respect Lecky Fotu, but Rashad Lawrence, I think, has a higher upside. He showed more last year. This comes from LSU, perennial contender, national champion, and I think it's just been better this preseason. Could they go out and make an upgrade, Damien?
I think if the value is there, Johnny, absolutely. I mean, you've seen over the past couple of years, I know that one of your stalwarts is going to be J.J. Watt, right? But
yeah,
when was the last time that he finished the season? So I think that with the Cardinals wanting to get the latter part of the playoffs, right? We talk about NFC Championship or even Super Bowl or deep into the playoffs. You have to have a consistent D-line. We even saw it with the Rams last year, right? Bringing on Von Miller. And, I mean, that's what took them to the next level. They had a great corner. They had a great interior defensive line in Aaron Donald. But they brought on Von Miller to take them to the next level. So, although it doesn't have to happen, right, with the final 53, I could see some Steve Keim turning this roster, whether it be for a defensive back and, interior defensive lineman. And, to your point, guys, I think that all preseason we haven't seen guys flash, right? In terms of that defensive, the interior defensive line. Yeah, we saw, is it not Kimdichie, but you know what I'm talking about. The defensive end, Diminkechi. Yep. Yeah, we saw him, make some plays, but he's outside linebacker. But in that interior defensive lineman, we haven't seen guys go out there and make it happen. And or at defensive back, we know that Byron Murphy had a great week of practice, a great day against the Titans. But rather than that, it's just going on, oh, okay, J.J. Watt is a guy. We know he's going to do it. But again, you just have to look at the past practice, right? And over the past 3 to 5 years, he hasn't completed a season. So I think if the value's there, Johnny, absolutely.
I love this comment from V-Rain NF because this is a name that's thrown at me a lot. And I feel like there's an opportunity to be had with Washington Commanders because Daron Payne, a bunch of their defensive linemen were not in the regime that's currently there with Ron Rivera and company. And there's some guys that don't fit that scheme. Daron Payne, Alabama, I think stud against the run, right? It's got some plus pass rush moves. That's the kind of move I'd be looking for. Going to teams that have new regimes, first or second year, that some guys just aren't a part of it, right? Some guys just don't fit the scheme or the mantra, and the Cardinals can swoop in and acquire them. I still feel like this front seven, as well as it played in the preseason, it had nice preseason. Michael Bidwell even mentioned, look at our depth in the front seven. I've got real concerns about defensive line. And, until I see otherwise, I've got concerns opposite Marcus Golden. But the difference is the Cardinals don't have a pair of quality third rounders waiting in the wings at outside linebacker. Defensive line, to me, sometimes it's almost scarier than cornerback because of the fact that what do teams want to do against the Cardinals on first and second down? They want to run it right at them, right? And the Cardinals, to me, last year, they got by with their cornerbacks fine when the defensive line was humming, right? And Chandler Jones was kicking ass. I know he plays outside linebacker, but nothing is more demoralizing. I don't care if it's passing league or not, than to watch a team like San Francisco is going to try to do to you with Trey Lance, who can't throw right now, pound the ball 40 times a game, right? And the RPO shit and smoke and mirrors, running it with Kyle Juszczyk. I don't know if the Cardinals, with their best, can line up and stop the run against these big, imposing offensive linemen with Trent Williams and company. I don't know if they have the opportunity to do that yet. But I think that if I had a chance, I would go out, Bo, and I'd make an upgraded defensive tackle. I just haven't seen enough from this group yet. I want to see Zach Allen be unblockable when the games count, not against, Tennessee in a joint practice that doesn't mean anything.
Right. I mean, we've been pounding the table ever since 9-0 left for somebody that can play inside. Really, I mean, you've got Calais, who played more on the end of a defensive line, but to actually have a guy who's like Darnell Dockett was, we haven't seen it in too long. I just don't know if it's a position that Steve Keim values, that he thinks he can just maybe have a rotation. Yeah. I mean, and we're seeing that with the cornerback position. So I don't know. That's when you hear it's very encouraging to hear Michael Bidwell say he's going to be bullish and he's going to be aggressive and he's going to go out there, and guys like Payne or in the Commanders and the Bears are teams that you want to follow along with, because there's going to be some guys a little long in the tooth, Robert Quinn's of the world, that don't fit the future of those franchises. They're going to be available. And like the DA said, the Rams went out and got some guys like that. They added Von Miller. Like, the Cardinals need to be one of those teams to help fill some of these holes going forward.
Yeah. And then the one thing that I'll point out last year and the year before, Cardinals made midseason acquisitions, right? And they made a big difference in Marcus Golden, and Zach Allen. If you wait to make an addition midseason, you can't start slow and then bring in a defensive tackle or a corner when this team, is 2-4, 2-5.
But Johnny, you got one. You got to pick one position. What's the top priority for you? Is it defensive back?
It's corner right now because it's so dire. But I value defensive tackle play more than corner. But at least the Cardinals can field a front three that's, I think, of quality come week one. The difference is Zach Allen's always hurt. J.J. Watt's always hurt. Rashad Lawrence is a nice player, but he's not a Pro Bowler yet. If that unit falls apart, the defense falls apart. The secondary, you can get by with B and C minus level corners. We saw San Francisco do it last year en route to the NFC Championship game because they beat the shit out of everybody up front at the line of scrimmage. When was the last time we've said the Cardinals
Bengals too
really done it? Yeah, I get the outrage. Cornerback's critical, and the Cardinals play so many Pro Bowl quarterbacks. I know it's important, but do we not remember this team was so poor against the run, especially in the second half of last year, And if the offense doesn't look like the offense, and it may not for the first couple of weeks because there's no DeAndre Hopkins and trying to get Hollywood Brown acclimated, like the Cardinals want to play run and go, where it's the offense takes off, scores a bunch of points, and you force the other team to become one-dimensional. If the offense starts slow and the other team's like, well, shit, I can just put, a bunch of linemen at the line of scrimmage. I can go heavy. I can get a fullback in there. I can run it right at Arizona. Bo, that's a problem. So today, right now, I would go get a cornerback. But, if it's up to me, I would get both positions. That's cheating, but I feel like those are the two clear, glaring holes on the roster.
Yeah.
Hey, Johnny, I feel pretty good because Bo has them going 11-6 with the roster that they have right now. So,
Damn.
I mean, I would agree with you. I'd say the defensive back is a priority, but I have those concerns with defensive line just due to the health risk, right, and just the depth, right? We need consistency at that position, and I know that. Believe me, I want to hang my hat on J.J. Watt. It's like, you know what, J.J. Watt is going to be a dog of old, and he's going to be that guy throughout the season. But unfortunately, I mean, just calling a spade and looking at history, that
we love J.J.
Yeah, that's you love him. You love everything about him, who he is on and off the field, but you just need that consistency.
He's so violent. And his body, he just leaves it all on the field. And then you wake up Monday morning and he's getting an MRR and something, and you're like, shh, well, this is what happens, right? And Zach Allen looks like he ate J.J. Watt. He's so big. But we're excited to hang out with you this fall. PHNX Cardinals new studio, tailgates, home tailgates, etc. Want to make sure you're happy and healthy, though. So go get a COVID-19 vaccine. They're free for everybody 5 and older. Those 12 and older are also eligible for a booster. I want you to visit azhealth.gov, get a vaccine, find one nearest to you as we put a bow on this preseason, gentlemen. And I'm going to start with Bo Brock with this bow. Give me one outlandish prediction next week. It can be a cut. It can be an acquisition. It can be a lateral move of some kind. Something's going to happen with this franchise next week. They're going to get back in their headline-making moves, for lack of a better term. What's it going to be? You can think of anything.
I mean, they do acquire a cornerback. Is that outlandish enough?
No, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, they are going to get it. They're going to aggressively pursue whatever they can do before now and 2 weeks from tomorrow against the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to get a cornerback, a veteran corner who kind of knows how to play the game a little bit, has the whole bag of tricks, can play a little bit of angles, and maybe might be half a step slower, but it's gonna be better what they've got.
Guys, I don't know. I don't know if a big impact's going to come. I mean, we talk about this, right? You scour over the best available players, and the value has to be there, right? Like, unless they're trading for an impact player, maybe a nickel guy that can come in, and that's a value, right? Because Andy Isabella is a second-round pick. He did have a hot preseason, and I guarantee you a lot of coordinators can see them fitting in their scheme and coming in and making plays. And it's going to have to be value associated, guys. And we know that the Cardinals have, a 3 and a 5th, I think, potentially picks coming. So you have, with those losing the guys that they had. So it can happen, but I think it's possibly going to lose. I see cornerback for sure, but I think you're going to be losing value to get value, and you need it at that position. And farewell. I think Andy is a great player. Hope he's on the team, but I could see him dangling for Andy Isabella for sure.
Yep, you took the words right out of my mouth, DA. The Cardinals, I predict Andy Isabella gets traded next week. That's my big move. The Cardinals get some kind of value of note that they can spin to their fan base and wish number 17, Bon Voyage from Arizona. And who knows, maybe they keep Victor Bolden. Maybe they keep 5 receivers. They keep Victor Bolden. He's not going to be active on game day. So I'll go out on a limb and say that next week, Andy Isabella is dealt to another team for a player and or a pick, or maybe both. But right now, everybody needs to pick up their phone and subscribe to the PHNX Cardinals podcast. Leave this podcast a 5-star review. Like this video right now, as it helps the YouTube algorithm. We're doing this pod every chance we get. We've got another pod dropping Monday morning, pods all next week. And then we're prepping. We're getting ready. We're getting our mind right for the regular season with our brand spanking new PHNX Cardinals PHNX studio. But before you do that, head on over to the PHNX merchandise locker, Labor Day sale, off the chain, get a t-shirt, get a hat, half price, third off, whatever. There's a ton of quality stuff. PHNX locker at gophnx.com. For Damien Anderson, he's Bo Brock. I'm Johnny Venerable. We're back in 2 days, not tomorrow, in 2 days. Thanks, everybody, for watching the post-game show. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.